Andrew is the former Senior Curator of Transport at the Powerhouse Museum. He worked so closely with Lionel on the project because, of course, transport is amazingly objects which inspired the museum. So he knows it very well.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for showing your interest and concern over this vital issue. Patricia said to me in an email before this evening, she thought I might want to talk about the transport collection, and of course I want to talk about the transport collection any opportunity, but given that we only have limited time, share some thoughts with you about the Harwood Building, which is a lesser known but extremely important integral part of the Powerhouse Museum complex. I can tell Jennifer's obviously familiarised you with the serial disappointment we've experienced in terms of being built up to expect some result from the efforts of those who are concerned about the preservation of some semblance of the Powerhouse Museum, only to be let down every time. I guess that's manifestly apparent to be part of a process that isn't interested in consultation, save for the shop window effects of saying they are, but what's going on in the workshop and in the shop, behind the shop window, is entirely a different thing. So I promised I wouldn't get myself revved up about this, rather to try and be factual, and I'm focusing on the Harwood Building, as I indicated, because it's a lesser known aspect of the museum complex, but also because its function was really vital in the day-to-day functions of the museum. And I thought, well, if I have 5 minutes, maybe 6, Patricia, if you'll indulge me there in 6 minutes. I thought I might share a few thoughts to paint a word picture of what typically went on in the Harwood Building on a daily basis. I've collapsed a number of things that might happen over a period of weeks to make it a little bit more interesting into a few hours, and then I stopped halfway through realising that if I kept going, I would keep you there all night. So I'm hoping that the illustration that I'm presenting in a few moments will give you some idea about why the Harwood Building was so vital and could still remain very vital in the future functioning of the museum. So, a few facts. And we'll start with a picture because pictures always help to place people's understanding. There's one view, it's way too small and I don't have a picture to show you on the screen, of the profile of the Harwood Building as it's seen at ground level. So most of you would know what that looks like. It's the workshop building, the former workshop building, and the fantastic look at that same picture. I have an aerial view as well, which is straight off Google Maps, which shows you the relative plan size of the maroon coloured roof relative to the plan of the Powerhouse roof. So now it's only roof, that doesn't include building height and so on, but the Harwood Building is essentially on 3 levels anyway: basement, workshop level, and mezzanine floor offices and workshops. And they're each extremely important in the functioning of the building. So that gives you some idea of where it is. Now, a few facts about the building itself, a few stats. It was officially opened on the 4th of September 1981 as Stage 1 Powerhouse Museum. It was planned during the late 1970s by the then Government Architects Branch and the museum as a launch pad to provision the development of the yet-to-be-announced Powerhouse Museum, and also as the operations centre of the museum once the museum opened fully. As such, the Harwood Building was uniquely designed with facilities far superior to those seen in any Australian museum at that time. Its name honours former long-serving Curator of Transport and Engineering Norman Harwood, and a few people here have had the distinction of working with Norm, who's a remarkable individual, and without whose knowledge and drive the institution he so loved is unlikely to have ever been reborn as the Powerhouse Museum. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who thinks that. I know that Jeff believes that. Even today, the Harwood Building is a unique cultural asset in Australia, yet it is currently destined for redundancy at best or demolition, just quietly fading away. The government and the current museum management have shown no interest, I don't mean a tiny bit, I mean no interest in retaining this building's function as it was designed. In fact, to the contrary, they have willfully and contemptuously disregarded all of the many attempts we have made, I say we collectively, all of them, that will probably include many in this room, to draw to their attention the value of this building and the needless waste of its amenity, with many decades of potential continued use currently going to waste. Well, that's if the current direction continues. Given its history as an ingenious example of adaptive reuse of a significant industrial building, it's extraordinary that the Harwood Building does not enjoy the protection of inclusion on the State Heritage Register. But there's another story. We don't have time to go into it, but it doesn't. It's not on the State Heritage Register. In its original form, the Harwood Building was the first electric tram depot in Sydney, built in 1899, the nascence of what would become one of the world's largest tramway networks. They used to say the largest in the British Commonwealth, outside London. That's when the British Commonwealth was really something to boast about. The original walls remain, and the characteristic sawtooth roof has been replicated to respect the traditional tram-shed design. Now, if I continue droning on like this, you'll obviously nod off. So I'm trying to vary this with a little bit of narrative. So here's an illustration of what might have happened for those who had the privilege of working in the Harwood Building for those years when it was particularly active. It was another busy day for the Harwood Building. The platform hoist in its spacious delivery dock has just delivered the last of 18 wooden crates containing the museum's latest contemporary travelling exhibition that would soon be unpacked and condition assessed in the basement by the registration and conservation staff. So that's just one function. Other collection staff were also at work in the basement, finalising plans for the coming weekend's open days, which would offer guided tours of the collections in the basement to members of the public. This would be another opportunity to reveal one of the museum's showpiece environments in which precise control of temperature and humidity provided optimal conditions for the storage of and access to some of the museum's most vulnerable and valuable collections, including many costume and paper-based items. Meanwhile, directly above, in the workshop, built on a suspended concrete slab floor, preparations were well advanced for 25 plinths and showcases required for a temporary exhibition to be installed in the turbine house in a few weeks' time. 4 large showcases had already been sent to the spray booth for undercoating. Getting the picture? This new exhibition would include several interactive exhibits, for which prototypes were under construction in the adjacent Interactives workshop. Testing and modifications would soon follow. The small group were meeting in the southern end of the workshop under the engineering conservation where the engineering conservation workshop was located. A conservator, a curator, exhibition developer and interpretation officer were discussing the treatment options for a rotary printing press to be featured in an exhibition about communications technology, and they were all gathered around the printing press that had been brought into the Harwood Building from the store at Castle Hill. The main task for the staff of the photography studio and the conservation laboratory that day was to carefully transport, set up and photograph 95 objects to be included in the forthcoming Art of Glassmaking exhibition. The images would be included in the exhibition's catalogue. An important visitor would observe this process on that day. One of the many advantages of the Harwood Building as a comprehensive in-house facility was the self-sufficiency and independence that this afforded to the museum's daily operations, underscored. bold. This was an appealing feature to sponsors who looked for value for their support. So, at an agreed time, the museum's development manager, accompanied by the sponsor's representative, visited the photography studio to see the process in progress and to experience the sense of privilege and fascination associated with access to the inner workings of a major museum, and on the same site as the museum itself. This narrative sketch doesn't go far enough to even mention many other roles like designers, AV technicians, librarians and so on, engaged in the complex interactions in the life of what was once the Powerhouse Museum. There is an ironic historical perspective here. As the former Ultimo tram depot, the Harwood building relied on the Ultimo Powerhouse to bring it to life each day. As the Harwood building, the Powerhouse Museum relied on the Harwood building to bring it to life each day. However, it is now apparent that this is not what your government or the museum's management and trust wants or needs, as the much-loved Powerhouse Museum is erased and replaced with a fashion and design centre, not even a museum, more an event space. So that's why the Harwood building is not needed anymore.